in the public sector. And I also want to say that for those who are new on the platform, it has become a tradition, a community, I must say. We have a couple of regular persons. Niles is how would I put it? Niles is a co-creator of this project. He's based in the US. The boss, I call him the boss, Bernard Ewa, is also here. And I want to say thank you for dropping by every week. It has become a community, but let's see how far we will take this. The future of jobs, let me quickly say for the benefit of those who are just coming in today, who are just coming on board for the first time, is a project that is dear to our hearts. The project is actually created for to drive conversation. My kids are disturbing, and I just need the mom to get them away from this place. Please, Niles, can you just take over from here? Let me attend to them. They just opened the door and I need to get them out of the room.
No problem. Thank you so much. All right. You know what? I think we'll go ahead and allow Mr. George to speak a little further, maybe towards the end. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and hand over the ball to Mr. Morah, who's going to be speaking on what he has here on the screen for all of us today. Mr. Morah, you can go ahead. You have the floor. First of all, thank you for doing the presentation for us. Thank you for coming. As you can see, he's going to introduce himself. He's a man that has a lot of experience. And so, Mr. Morah, you can take it over from here.
Thank you, Niles. Good evening, all. Good evening, Bernard. Ewa. My brief profile, I think, was shared, but I will still do like a minute introduction. I'm Mr. Morah. I work for the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Before getting to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, I'd done like 10 years in the private sector. Before I joined the public sector. And this is my 10th year in the public sector. I can't tell my story without pointing out that Mr. Bernard Ewa's initiative in 2001 jump-started my career in IT. I had the opportunity to have access to a training that I wished I could get while I was in school, but it was practically impossible in terms of costs and in terms of even access to have such a training. But getting to Abuja, I discovered NIT, which was the brainchild of Bernard Ewa, and this gave me the opportunity to have the requisite training that started my career in the tech space. Okay, that said, our topic for discussion today is on digital transformation, the challenges, the opportunities, and ways we can even navigate through when we find that probably we're an outlier, we're a small business, we're affected. In terms of what we mean by connection in Africa, knowing people in positions of authority. We'll look at how we can get through this based on this topic came from from the complaints and what I've seen being on both sides that's happened to people with great ideas and initiatives that at the end of the day, they can't push it through. Not because they don't have what it takes to get that stuff done, but because of the peculiarity of our environment and their ignorance of how to get through some of the challenges that prevent private businesses from engaging fruitfully with the public sector. But unlike our previous presentations, this is going to be interactive. I will have to draw from the experience of the participants and now provide insights courtesy of the vantage visibility I have being in the government and interacting with government agencies and the private sector. So I will start with what do we expect from building a contest? Going forward and building a contest for this discussion, we have a couple of people that are online, about 10, 11 or 12 of us. I would like a minute from each person. What do you expect from this session? Brief introduction to get every other person to know you and what you expect from this session. Where do we start? We've heard from maybe we've heard from Uko. Is Oraf? Can you hear me? Hello.
What? Are you?
Yes, Mr. Morah, we can hear you.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening, Isra.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. I can hear you all. Hello?
I think we lost him. Okay. Not quite. He has audio challenges.
Yes, it does. It does have challenges. Maybe some other person should his expectation. Yes, good evening. We can hear you, Israel. Isora.
Isora, go ahead. I'm able to hear you.
Okay. His full name is Raphael.
All right, Raphael, how are you doing, Mr. Raphael? Okay, so I think you may be having some audio problem. That's quite all right. We can have somebody, Mr. Morah wants to know, what are your expectations from this session? Can someone else share?
Yes, I want to say something. Nice. Good evening, Mr. George. Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, good evening, Emmanuel. Good to have you.
Good to have you too. How is your day?
Great. Go ahead with your question or your comment or question.
Okay, I have to come through. I know using my own personal experience, how I wish he's here to hear me. I know I had that while I was in the university, even in secondary school. Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
And I have this philosophy of that the elderly ones, they are sound, that they know what they're doing, they understand the future, and that if the future is where I intend to go, I have to listen to them. So I practically obeyed everything they told me, did everything they said I should do. Read their book, don't follow bad gang, don't do this and don't do that. And when I went into the university and all of those things until I graduated, throughout this period, I was told that if you read hard and commit yourself to studying and everything, once you come out, that you are going to, like heaven will open and everything you are looking for will just fall on your laps, and then you will, then all those things you are busy looking for now will now start scrambling, running towards you. Unfortunately, by the time I got into work, even in the private sector where I worked before, it was an entirely a different case. It was a situation where you want to live right, you want to do things right, you are considered a threat. They will fight you since what you are doing, seem to be righteous. There is nothing they can use to fight you, so they will go underground and then begin to apply certain subtle punishments. Something that
Mr. Manuel, sorry for cutting you because we have lots of people right now. We are participant, and the facilitator for today wants each and every one of us to give him his expectation. Please don't be angry, but can you just quickly go to your expectation from today's presentation?
So to zero in everything, I discovered that everything you want to demonstrate, what you carry inside of you are being prevented. So I'm expecting from him today to show us is when you find yourself in such a situation where you are, the environment, it is peculiar to Nigeria, that the environment abhors people who wants to do the right thing. How do you go through? How do you pull through and see come out and make your mark?
Okay, in a nutshell, what Mr. Manuel is saying, how do you navigate bureaucracy around public sector? Because in the public enterprise or in the public entity, there's a lot of bureaucracy. So I think what he's trying to say, or what he's saying, is that how do you navigate? How do you navigate your way around the bureaucratic tendencies and things you have around in the public sector? So I guess that's what he's trying to say.
Not really the bureaucracy, the people you are working with who does not want you to shine, who doesn't want you to do the right thing.
Yes, it's all part of the bureaucracy.
Okay.
Okay, so some other person, we've had one question. I'm sure the speaker has written that.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I'm Ismail.
Those 5 pieces.
Ismail Rafi is my name.
Okay, Ismaila, welcome. Welcome, Ismail Rafi. Good evening.
Yes.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yes, the title of the invitation set of opportunities, and that is what I'm here to explore as a retiree who is not tired. Thank you.
I like that word. I like that phrase. Retiree who is not tired. Okay, fine. That's another second question. In the third expectation. Who's next?
Hi, my name is and I'm here. What we need to do to engage with the public as a service.
What we need to do to engage with the public sector.
Okay.
Hello, please. Can we all turn off our mics so that we have only one person speak at a time? Niles, can you help us out? Let only the person that I think right now it was.
I'm muting everyone right now.
Okay,
so
yeah.
who was just speaking? Who was just speaking?
It was Rafiu. Rafiu, are you still there?
Okay.
We didn't.
All right, Rafi, you can go ahead.
Hello. I'm
Yes,
Ismail
Go ahead, we can
Rafiu.
hear you.
Go ahead.
I'm Ismail Rafiu, and I was actually very brief. I said the title of the invitation says it all: opportunities, and that is why I'm here. I want to explore the opportunity that is available in the new environment for a retiree who is not tired.
Okay, yeah, we got that. We got that.
Okay.
And that means
All
there
right.
was some other
Thanks.
person who said something. Okay. Next person.
I said introduce myself. I'm Kingsley Azenekwe. I work for a bank, and my objective of coming in here today is to understand how to engage with the public sector as a service provider.
Okay. How to engage with the public sector as a service provider. Next person.
Hello, this is Ben Ewa.
Hello, Mr. Ben.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ben Ewa. I work for the National Information Technology Development Agency. Given the knowledge that the public sector is not spared from the changes that are going on in terms of employment and businesses. So it will be interesting to know, or you have IK's perspective of how the public might approach this changes. What should they expect? Particularly the younger ones who may be looking for jobs, or people who have small businesses and expecting to engage the government, what are those unique things that they should expect? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ewa. The next person that has their hand up is Faith Williams. Can you go ahead and share?
Okay, good evening, all. Good evening,
Yeah,
all.
good evening. Is this William?
This is Faith William from Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria.
Welcome. You can share your expectations. Go ahead.
Okay, my expectation in this session tonight is to learn, unlearn, and relearn. COVID-19 has thrown a challenge to citizens and almost everybody around, and there are changing realities. I believe there's an opportunity to learn and also adapt new skills for the changing realities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wants to share their expectations for the session? All right, Mr. Morah, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Niles. The expectations are noted. Ground rule, if you want to contribute as someone is speaking, you can use the raise your hand option, or you can enable your video and raise your hand so that the coordinator for the session can identify you and allow you to talk. Thank you for your expectations. I've noted them down, and that our discussion on this topic. So the next slide is, we'll start with the challenges. How many of us here have done or attempted to do a contract with the public sector? And I would like to take like 3 people, if we have up to that, to share the experience in 3-4 minutes. And I will take it up from there to provide some insights from identified challenges from the people who have shared their experience. And I'll give 1 or 2 case studies about how people who had maybe similar challenges were able to get through. So I need 3 volunteers, 3 people who have done business with the public sector. Do we have that here? Anyone? Can you hear me?
William has raised his hand. All right, Faith, you can go ahead and share. Hello, William, are you there?
Hello.
Okay. You can go ahead and share your experience.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much for actually the public procurement process in Nigeria is characterized by corruption. For instance, the call for open bidding, and then you see persons go out, send the bidding, but at the end of it, you know that, in fact, for most Nigerians, the bidding process is just a formality, because most citizens have this perception that the person needed has already been selected. So that's just to, do a ceremony and all that. Corruption process, with the corruption in the system, persons have lost faith in the system. So I have so many other persons that have experience. For instance, here in Akwa Ibom State, the state government just put in place the Public Procurement Council. After civil societies and every other person have been acting, demanding how much has the state been spending? During the COVID-19, government spent money feeding security personnel, and then you've not made it known to the city who was this contract given to, how was this contract given to. So these are the things that has made citizens lost faith in the system. Thank you very much. Let me give the opportunity to some other person.
Thank you, Mr. Faith Williams. All right, Mr. Moore asked for 3 people, so we need someone else to raise your hand. Who else would like to share their experience with the group? Okay, Mr. Ewa, you have the floor.
Okay, I've had varied experiences dealing with government. As I've dealt with government as a businessman, you know, as Ike mentioned, first business in Abuja was NIT, and so we had a number of procurements from government training public servants and so on. I've also engaged with government as a consultant, and for the most part, specifically also handling IT procurement practices and so on. And now I work for government as a public servant. So, as I said, my experiences are mixed. The period I'm referring to covered about 2 decades, especially when we didn't have a central procurement agency like BPP, all right? But now we do have something like that. So, yes, there's a lot of challenges, but my personal sense is that these challenges are not strange because they are a reflection of the larger Nigerian societies. That said, over the last 10 or so years, especially since the BPP came on board, first due process, then BPP, there's more order and discipline. People may have different experiences, but for me, it is easier now than ever before. First of all, for a long time now, government agencies are only allowed to advertise projects that have been provided for in the budget. So it's nothing like, oh, there's no money to pay. Once a project is advertised, once it goes through PPP, money is being set aside. And that is a big plus, something that I think it started in the Obasanjo regime also. All right. Of course, there'll always be some issues, particularly when you're dealing with human beings. But something too that is, I think I should not fail to mention here is that at this particular point in time, there is a World Bank funded project to develop a public procurement application that would reduce most of the interactions that take place, particularly at individual MDA level. We'll be able to bid for projects the way you. So most times, for those of you who have worked been contractors with the oil companies and all that, you don't need to know anybody. You know, all the procurement are put out there, and you check yourself. If you don't qualify, you don't qualify. If you do, then you're in. So that project is ongoing. I happen to be working on the committee with the BPP as well. So I think that it's going to go a long way to enhance transparency in the public procurement process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ewan. I think we have 3 people now, or do we have one extra person?
Okay,
And
I'll just take a stab at it. My name is Kingsley. I haven't really done any contracts with the government, but yeah, I have a bit of experience. We do collections and stuff for government, but uh, the experience I have in country here, like Ben said, there's been a number of processes that have procurement processes that have been put in place in Nigeria. But I still think that we're still very far from probably what our brothers in East Africa are doing. In East Africa, there's a clearer procurement process. If the government wants to do anything, most times there's a clear. It's very very clear to everybody. Probably everybody provides that service that the government is looking for this. There's a clear advertisement process, and they tend to attract bids from the best. You don't even have to be a local company. So long as you have a presence in the country, it's a more transparent process. Probably I'm now speaking from an outsider, I'm not a government official. But around here, once in a while, you tend to hear that, oh, this company has been awarded this job. You probably didn't know there was that those kind of that service was up for bid. That's my experience. But again, I'm speaking from an outsider. I haven't bidded for a contract directly, but as an organization, I work with an organization that provides different kinds of services to government, both at the federal and at the state level. Thanks.
thank you very much. I think we have 3 people now, Mr. Mora. Is there any one more person that would like to speak that cannot hold your experience back and would like to share before I hand the ball back over to Mr. Mora? Okay, Mr. Mora, you have the floor.
Thank you, Niles. The challenges are numerous, Ben, and there are also opportunities. Part of the challenges that we may not have mentioned, or some of us have mentioned, is that sometimes there's this perception that there's already a predetermined bidder for every procurement that comes out from the public sector, for every procurement need that the public sector pushes out for people to bid for. To some extent, that might be true for some agencies, and in some agencies, it might not be true. So, what do you do when most people don't even make progress to do some due diligence to find out about a given procurement? And how do you break in when you have such a perception, and when probably to a large extent in some organizations that might be true? You may have to engage with, if you have an initiative, if you have a project. Sorry, somebody is requesting something to be shared. Mirabel?
Never mind, it's a mistake. Continue.
Okay, fine. Okay, how do you break in? Before any work comes to the budget, there's a process that it goes through. An initiative, there's a problem that prompts an initiative for something to be done. So if you have a service that you've identified that's going to be useful for organization A or organization B, as a small business, you have the skill sets, you have the partnership that would support, if it is necessary, to provide such a service to a government agency. Get to the select government agency getting, and find out the impacted departments. There's a structure. There are departments that make up every government agency. Find out the interfacing department, engage with the director of the department, work out with the department, make it it can be a pro bono service to flesh out how such an initiative is going to help the department, build relationship with the head of department, understand the power matrix within that organization, understand how whether it is an organization where an initiative can come from a head of department and it will be adopted by the chief executive of the organization, or it's an organization where you need to deal with the chief executive, get a buy-in for whatever you are presenting to be procured or to be a service to such an organization. And you will need to understand the Procurement Act. There are certain services that can be single sourced if it is a unique service that can be provided by a lot of companies, or you fall in within that cannot be provided by any company. You know, they can use a single sourcing act to single sourcing component of the Procurement Act to procure that service from you. But the challenge is that most small businesses, even big ones, you know, don't understand this Procurement Act, don't understand how to engage with individuals within the government system, despite the interests that might exist. And without that, most times when you bring your initiative, it gets hijacked and probably given to a trusted party in quote to execute. In some cases, you are called by that trusted party to still, if you cannot source such a skill set or such a service from any other place, to still provide support to it to do that work. So what you call corruption exists everywhere, but the challenge is how do you navigate through the interests and all that can truncate whatever idea you have from happening. These challenges that I wrote here, I hope it's correct spelling of challenges. It looks strange to me. CHALLENGS. Okay, so I want to give you an example of a beautiful initiative. Some of us might have known about that. There was a small company made up of a couple of guys that does turnkey projects within the construction sector, and they approached a governor of one of the northern states and said that we can help you to do your roads without you spending any money. So the governor was surprised. How would you do that? They said, well, this is the process. We'll have to sign certain agreements that if we share this with you, you would allow us to play this part in getting the project done. The governor said, are you sure that I'm not going to spend anything? They said yes. The governor signed whatever agreements with the company and put the proposal to the table. You can see their approach. They've already secured a contract or some agreements that would prevent the states from pushing them out from whatever they're going to bring to the table. And what did they do? A simple proposal is a state that has a lot of rocks. They couched so what do you call it? A lease arrangement for, and brought in the likes of Julius Berger and some, especially, to sign up a lease arrangement with the state to mine those rocks, you know, to produce whatever that are the outcomes that come from a quarry. In payment for mining those rocks, they've already worked out the cost of building the roads in the metro city of that state. So part of the lease arrangement is that you pay by building these roads. And after a couple of years, this will, after we've done the roads, this now becomes what comes to the states if the mining continues of those rocks. I'm talking about a state governor that most of you would have known about, Mr. Muazu. Is it Muazu? Bauchi State. That was how Bauchi Metro was built up. All the roads were done. If there was a bidding process for this initiative, nothing would have made that company to get that bid. The company that arranged all this. So you need to find out what is the pain point of the chief executive of the government agency that you want to provide service to. There are some pain points that he can afford to give the contracts out to friends and political associates. There are some pain points that he needs a solution wherever it comes from. He doesn't care, he just needs the problem to be solved by whoever that can solve that problem. And that exists in every government agency. The challenge is, how do you identify these pain points? This takes me to my next slide, the opportunities that exist in the public sector. We, no doubt, are in a new normal, courtesy of COVID-19. Most government agencies that provide services have a challenge on how they would engage with the public and their stakeholders. Most ways in a number of organizations, how their internal operations are executed have been disrupted by COVID-19. In a number of government agencies where use of IT to drive the operations had been resisted for a long time, courtesy of the transparency that such systems bring and the interests that may not want such transparency to be in place, COVID-19 have eroded these interests. Operations are stalled from happening, and there are a whole lot of opportunities that have been brought to bear courtesy of these constraints and challenges that COVID-19 have placed on all organizations, not even just government organizations, but I'm focusing on the government organizations right now. Most organizations would like to engage with their customers, with their people that receive services from them digitally, because right now it's no longer an option. It's the only way we can move forward. As a small business in Nigeria or in Africa, looking at these challenges and constraints that we have, what should come to your mind is, what type of solution or service do I bring to the table that can enable organization A take care of work stalling operations that are caused by COVID-19? And these are where the jobs are. So if you have an organization that interfaces with the public, you have several of them. What type of solutions do you bring to the table that can enable such engagement with the public for the organization to provide those services? What type of, I want to give examples, but I wanted this to be interactive. How can you engage with an organization and get whatever service that you need from them with zero or minimal physical interaction? A number of government agencies are considering to have a contact center. A number of government agencies are considering to extend how they engage using maximizing their web engagement interface or even mobile interface. A number of government agencies are looking at how they can still conduct trainings without physical presence of the trainer and the trained in an enclosed space. A number of government agencies are considering on how they can run their internal operations and enable collaboration amongst teams without the physical meeting of persons or teams for these things to happen. There are a whole lot of opportunities that have soft courtesy of the challenges that we have from COVID-19. As a small business, what are you thinking? What capabilities are you building to enable you to engage with these opportunities? What ideas, we're in 2020, this is July, what ideas are you articulating to, and what efforts are you making to engage with corporate organizations, especially in the public sector, to factor in some of these ideas, leveraging on, if it is something unique that you feel that may that gives you an edge, you can, there are ways you can secure your interests without being pushed out from providing such a service by the time your prospective client understands what you're to do for them. But there are a lot of low-hanging fruits that we can engage with, which I've mentioned some of them. But I will need this to, for us that are in this session, with the background I've laid, can you give me some insight? Where are the jobs that, from this background, that we can tap into, and what are the skill sets that we need to be able to tap into these jobs? Then you can provide whatever fears that you, or you can communicate whatever fears that you have that with engaging with the public sector to enable me to now give you some insight on how you can navigate some of these challenges. Let me give you one example as you think about the jobs. We have a government agency that uses SAP and was working with SAP. SAP is a German multinational. It's an enterprise software company, of which 95% of the Fortune 500 or 90% of the Fortune 500 are using. And we have a government agency that adopted the use of SAP to drive its operations. At some point, after several cycle or waves of implementation to, automate their processes, they had a lot of issues with working with the OEM. Still Nigerian factor, you have Nigerians working in the OEM. There are a lot of interests. Projects don't get completed on time. And at some point, after a lot of investments have been made, we were not able to get certain processes to work well in that organization. So the chief executive now said, can we get any partner of SAP, anyone that has the competence to get this done for us? And how do we make sure that we don't get rent seekers, utilizing their contacts to infiltrate the procurement process and push out the prospective people who can solve this problem for us? Such scenarios play out in public organizations from time to time. I'm using SAP and given organization in this case. And we had to go through a procurement process that is not the usual one, where we bring in partners of SAP, including SAP themselves, and give them our problem sets. Then we have the process owners that needed those processes to be implemented on SAP to interview these prospective service providers. And that was how a particular company that didn't have the connection, that didn't have probably if money is used in influencing contracts, they didn't have the money to throw around, that was how they got a contract that the OEM also bidded for and couldn't get. And they went ahead and implemented what they have demonstrated to the process owners that they could do, more than the other contestants for such a project. and they got a contract and executed it well. Courtesy of that contract, SAP Germany sacked a number of people in their Nigerian office because they couldn't understand how such an opportunity would be lost by an OEM, and just a small partner was able to get that, right? So there are still problems in the public sector that only competent people can get. Such problems are the ones that probably may have persisted over a long time, and the organization in question may have tried a number of service providers without success. You can sniff out these opportunities. They are lying open if you engage with persons that are working in this place, or you can even engage formally if you have an idea that you want to share with a given organization. You write for a session to have a session with the organization so you can flesh out more insight about how you can more insight that will enable you to structure the service that you want to provide for such an organization. Hello. Hello.
We can hear you, Mr. Morah.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Morah. We can hear you.
So
go ahead.
Okay, then sometimes you might have to beat an unpopular part. Most of us in Nigeria may have heard about Remita. Remita is a payment gateway built by, well, a medium-sized business. What do you call it? Software, computer warehouse group. System spec. Before, when Remita was built, actually, FIRS was the target. They were working with FIRS and CBN, so that we can use that to drive some of our payments. They were practically begging, but they've invested the effort, to build that software system that enables payments to happen. There were competing bigger options from the banks, but they kept the relationship with the government agencies they were interacting with until there was a new policy to consolidate all government funds to the Central Bank of Nigeria, meaning that all MDAs will now have an account with the central bank. You don't have to maintain accounts with the commercial banks, and you can expend from your account in the central bank. And that policy just jumpstarts created a huge opportunity for system spec. And Remita became the single means transaction, payment gateway for all government agencies. But it started small. They did a proof of concept. It made some sense. It looked at it's going to survive because of the weight of the commercial banks in that space, and the likes of what's the name of this? What's the name of the company that provides a payment gateway for most banks before, set up by Accenture and some other partners? What's the name of the payment gateway? The most
InterSwitch.
Switch, yeah. So
InterSwitch.
InterSwitch. So with the like of InterSwitch being available, with the strength of InterSwitch, with the type of partners that set up InterSwitch, a small company like System Spec still could dream that they could and push through a solution that now is the de facto standard in the public sector. That is still possible in there are still a lot of space and opportunities that you can carve a niche and build a solution, secure one client, and scale out to other clients within the public space. There are so many other examples. I want this to be interactive. I wish when some of us explained or expressed their engagement with the public sector, they were able. I was expecting to hear definite challenges that they incurred, and I wanted to provide insight on how similar challenges may have been sorted out by some businesses that have interacted with government agencies that have been part of. But since we didn't get that type of input, and I'm also limited by the fact that I'm working in the public sector with what I can discuss in a public media like webinar. So I have to give examples that are conceptual. Mr. Ben, you're now in the public sector. And you have service providers who provide services to your organization. And you might be aware of certain challenges that may have prevented small businesses from getting opportunities. So I'm also expecting probably you might share with us some of these challenges. It's a brainstorming session. Then we can now, in our interaction, figure out, drawing from our experience, ways that ways that an organization can use to navigate these challenges. I've given one. Be part of the budget preparation process. If you have an initiative that you want to provide to a government agency, engage and build confidence and trust. It's not easy, but it's doable with key stakeholders within the government agency. Help them to build what will be included in the next year's budget. Do your stakeholder analysis well, find out where the powers are. If the chief executive is going to stay for more than 2 or 3 years, that means that you need to have his buy-in, or whoever that is close to the chief executive, you need to have his buy-in. You need to even have such a person to own that initiative. If you don't have the political strength to weigh in to secure such an initiative, you get an owner that has such political stuff, that has a relationship with your chief executive or the chief executive of the company of the organization that you want to provide a service for. So once that is included, budget is done. They know that this came from company A, right? And company A have demonstrated that they can do that. Sometimes, in a lot of cases, company A gets that job. One other way is you can use. We have an organization that tried to implement a contact center. They've done that 3 times and it didn't work. So what a small business did, they found out what it would take to assemble this team for such a solution, contacted and partnered with the appropriate OEM that can provide the infrastructure and software for the contact center, and propose to a government, the public agency, that we can put this in place for you, and you run it for a quarter and see how it improves your operations. But based on this, they had to secure the terms for such a deployment. And after the period, the agreements were signed, they deployed. Of course, that involves some investment. They had to structure something from the bank, to help them to cover such. They also had an insurance component in case it doesn't pull out, and pay the necessary premium to be able to. There's a financing component to that to be able to secure the risks that you might be exposed to. But the point is that at the end of the day, at the end of the 3 months, it was their client that said, no, we cannot afford to stop this. Let's work out. And that was how they secured that contract. Completed the implementation by expanding the scope, and they are now in post-implementation support. This initiative has been used in the early 2000s by a small company that did some stuff for MTN. What's the name of the company? Suburban Telecoms. You know, they had stuff that they proposed to MTN. MTN ran it for a while, you know, and when the period of free usage elapsed, it was, in fact, before it elapsed, because of the type of revenues that have come for MTN, courtesy of that, it was MTN themselves that initiated that, please, we cannot afford for this to stop. Let us have your 3-year or 5-year lease for this service. And that was how they secured their first major client, you know, Suburban Telecoms in Abuja then. I don't know how they offered and how well they're doing right now. So there are various ways you can still bring in or break in into a public sector organization and secure a service that you have the competency to provide. One of the challenges is that most times what we have are we have people who are just seeking contracts. They just want to get anything and make money, you know. So you with very shallow skill sets in their team, with very shallow value proposition, with very shallow study of the client that they want to provide a service for. So most times such efforts fizzle out, and it doesn't provide any value for either the small business or the organization that they want to engage. Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, we're still with you, Morah.
Yeah. I just need some I need some inputs. So far I've given some ideas on how you can navigate the issue or the challenge of bidding blindly. In 2007, relationships matter in engaging with public sector. We had, I was in the private sector then, working for a boutique consulting firm that was new in Abuja, came in 2004. And they had a relationship with, courtesy of a lot of pro bono stuff they've done for one of the special advisors for El-Rufai, when El-Rufai was the minister of FCT. So, and we got a win. I want to talk about 3 or 4 major projects that this small company got. That, if you look at the Nigerian context, there is, and the challenges that pervade the Nigerian space, such contracts wouldn't have come to that type of such a small company. In 2005, this company was contacted by one of the persons in the government working for El-Rufai that there's a challenge with a particular contract given to one of the destination inspection agents for Nigerian custom. Nigeria changed from pre-shipment inspection to destination inspection for goods that come into Nigeria. What is pre-shipment inspection? Pre-shipment inspection means for goods that are coming into Nigeria, they are checked in the originating port for the value of what you should pay as custom duties. And that is what you pay by the time the shipment comes in to Nigeria. So we changed by January 1, 2006 to destination inspection, meaning that whatever you are bringing in, once it comes to Nigeria, we still have to check it. So to provide or accommodate the potential of clogging at the ports, Nigeria had to give a a license, a contract to 3 companies, Cotecna, one other company, and I think Cotecna at SGS. Both of them are foreign companies, and an indigenous company called Global Scan. Global Scan is owned by a Nigerian. So, but unfortunately, the meetings that these 3 companies were having with the systems integrator for Nigerian customs, Webfontaine is the systems integrator for Nigerian customs. So they had to have a meeting with them because they were given a contract to provide scanners that would help to quickly process goods that come into the country. So SGS and Cotecna were able to put their infrastructure in place, built the software system that integrates with custom, built this software system that integrated with the scanners, built a risk management system that does a profiling for, depending on where the goods are coming from, and some other metrics. The software will now determine whether there will be a full a complete search or a complete assessment of the good in the container, or whether it should just go. But the Global Scan company, which is an indigenous company, that got this contract for the space that they were given, which included Tinkan Island and some other locations in Lagos and Port Harcourt. The money that should come to them is 1% of the value of the goods that come into the points that they were given. It was a good contract, of course, gotten by someone who had political strength, but they were not able to execute. December 15th, 2005, Global Scan had no office anywhere, had not built the software system that they're supposed to use. And this contract was effected by whatever means for them to get it. And the people within the government didn't want that contract to fail. So calls were made, and courtesy of the relationship the company I was working with then had with one of the special advisors on IT to verify, we got contacted to build, to set up the office and build the necessary software that should integrate with customs system. So why were we contacted? We had the competence. We have shown that we can provide such services, courtesy of the previous jobs that have been done by that small company, a good number of them on a pro bono basis. So the contract for Global Scan as a destination inspection agent for customs could have been cancelled by December 28th. Between December 15 and December 27th, we set up the office for Global Scan, put up the necessary infrastructure, and built a risk management system based on minutes of meeting that was held in Switzerland between Webfontaine and SGS and Cotecna, of which Global Scan was not even present. So in those minutes, they identified the various requirements that the risk management system should meet. And there were a number of documentation. So we had to go through that and build the software system, deployed it. Obasanjo was waiting for December 28th to cancel the contract. Actually, Global Scan belongs to Emeka Ofo, for those of us who might know him. But such opportunity dripped down to a small company called Quantec Technology Services at that time, and we were able to provide and secure that contract for Global Scan. We went ahead to provide several other services for Global Scan that enabled it to keep up with the agreement or contract that they had with Nigerian Customs. Courtesy of that, we got another engagement with Nigerian National Pension Commission. by reference of, but through a reference of what we did for customs via global scan. National Pension Commission was a year old. It was set up in 2004. You know, one director from Federal Inland Revenue Service was made the DG of National Pension Commission. Somebody Ahmad, you know, very sound guy. So Obasanjo wanted to do, the pensions was an issue at that time, and Obasanjo wanted to clear all the arrears in pensions. Pension is still an issue till today. You might have heard about, what's the popular name of that man that was being chased around?
Minor.
Minor, yes. So National Pension Commission wanted was Ibrahim Maina, yeah. So Obasanjo wanted to clear the arrears of all federal pensioners as at 2007, 2006. You know, good initiative, awesome, but even though it was the vision of the president, there were a lot of problems. You know, some people were saying that he wanted to pay pensioners because he wants to come back for third term. He has already done 2 terms as the president of the country. You know, you can imagine such an interpretation, but it happens. There were a lot of, so the contracting, to contract out the management of the nationwide pensioner verification exercise, to be able to bring into a central pool all existing pensioners, both living and dead, and enable the government to have a structured information to be able to pay them. National Pension Commission put up an advert for a consultant to handle the project management, the systems implementation, the deployment, and all that. So we were referred, but we still had to bid. They had a preferred bidder, actually, you know, coming from Ministry of Finance, Budget Office. But what did we do? We still we picked up the bid form. When they now advertised in the advert for the bid, the dates that was put in the advert. For instance, if 15th July is a Wednesday and 17th July is a Friday, they put in Wednesday, 17th July 2006. Meanwhile, 17th July is a Friday, and Wednesdays of that July should be a 15th July. So we were confused. It's a technique of edging out promising and very smart SMEs. We were confused, but what did we do? We submitted on Wednesday, 15th July, got evidence for the submission of our bid, well articulated. We have the team, we have responsible experience, you know, as a company. When we went on that 15th, they refused to collect. They said that what is there is 17th. We said yes, but with this Wednesday, we know that Wednesday is 15th, so probably it's a mistake. They said no, don't worry, come on 17th. We said no. Since Wednesday is here, let's submit on Wednesday. Probably it's a typographical error. So there was a resistance, possibly because they felt that we're able to understand the trick. So they had no choice but to collect our bid on that Wednesday. A number of on the upper week, there was now a circular that said, "Oh, there was a typographic." So people raised issue. They came on Friday and they told them that it's actually Wednesday. So in the problem, they said, okay, people who couldn't submit because of that typographical error can submit within this 2-day gap, but they've already gotten what they wanted, and they had a means of, I don't know what they did to edge out those guys that submitted afterwards. But we that was how we got in within the group that submitted on that Wednesday. It was only us and two other companies that submitted on Wednesday. That is supposed to be 15th July instead of the 17th that they wrote beside Wednesday in the bid in the advert. Eventually, we were able to make the actual presentation. We were able to. We had all it takes to deliver that stuff, but we could have lost it. Yes, we also made use of a relationship, but we could have still lost it with the relationship or contact we had, because civil servants, I don't know, have their brilliance can come out in some very funny ways, when they want to deploy it. So that was how we got. At the end of the day, we were the preferred bidder, and we got that contract. Executing the contract was not even easy. It is not about getting contract in government. You can get a contract in a government organization, and there are certain insights or there are certain understanding that if you don't have, you can, especially if you're not the preferred, in quotes, bidder by certain interests, they can still frustrate you out of that contract. The contract is supposed to consolidate information about pensions from all federal agencies. The universities, courtesy of National University Commission, at that time you had a pension agency that had to do with customs, immigration, prisons, and I think the police. They call it SIPO at that time. Then you have the Military Pension Board. So because the government wanted to consolidate all these pension bodies into one to be able to manage the payment of pensions for federal retired federal workers. So 2005, for those of us who understood, who can recall what happened in Nigeria, there was a consolidation of, there was a policy from CBN that caused banks to consolidate to build up a deposit capital of, was it 25 billion? Hello?
Yeah, 25 billion. Yeah, 25 billion.
25 billion, yeah. So a number of that forced a number of banks to merge. So by 2006, we had fewer banks, but stronger. But can you imagine that when we requested for information from Military Pensions Board, they gave us their pensioners' information with account details of 2005 in 2006, of which most of those account information were already wrong because some of those banks don't exist by 2006. And the information was given to us in a text file, not even in Excel. So first of all, you have wrong information, which you can't work with. Secondly, it's in a format that if you don't have the requisite skills, you can't even transform it to what you can use, in having a clean database of the pensioners you need to deal with. So courtesy of, we had one thing going for us because the chief executive of the National Pension Commission at that time could see how we assisted him to set up the program management function within his agency. He was just about 2 years old as a chief executive of a government agency at that time, and how we were able to draw up a team of both internal staff of the government agency combined with our staff and some ad hoc staff that will be deployed across the country for the verification exercise. And in that verification exercise, I'm coming down to the challenges that we got from the constituting pensions agencies that worked with us, like the Military Pensions Board. In that, we also had an issue. How would you even pay these pensioners? Because you have to pay them something as part of the verification process, even if it's a 1 month payment. So are you going to give them a check? How would you sign a check for 300,000 people at that time? almost about 280 something thousand people. That was an issue that we had to also deal with. But for the military pension, we had to draw in the presidency to even force the through, not that we are, but through clear communication, working with your principal within, that's your client. We were able to couch a letter that enabled him communicate to the presidency that we need information about military pensioners as at January 2006, but what we got was that of 2005. These bottlenecks, there are so many of them, were deliberately provided by the parties who did that, because one, we were seen as an outlier. First of all, who is Quantec Technologies Limited to do such a job, and we were working for the singular interest of helping the chief executive of the pensions board then to succeed. And even the DG himself had to deal with these the chief executives of other pension bodies, that their jobs were threatened if the project would succeed or should succeed. So there were myriad of problems from the fact that you are not the anointed company that, in quotes, that should have gotten this job, to the point that there are a myriad of interest to even prevent that project from working in the first place. But for each problem that comes, we had to brainstorm with the client. First of all, you need to have the confidence of the client to be able to partner with him properly. Confidence and trust of the client. Brainstorm with the client, come up with a solution, help him to structure communication to the necessary stakeholders that should be, and also assist him to engage with the stakeholders that should be informally involved to get a certain problem solved. At the point, at 2005, electronically signed checks, was new, or probably have not been done within the government system. But we had to come up with that, because we can't have the chief executive sign 285,000 checks. So the software system that we built as part of this engagement enabled these checks, the content of the check to be printed, including the signatories that should sign. Across the country was also met with a lot of challenges, which we had to also deal with. But at the end of the day, we were able to deliver on that job, and Quantec had a retainership with National Pension Commission for the next 5 years, raking in excess of $1 billion in revenues from that one client. At the point that Quantec Technologies bidded for this job, we didn't even have what do you call it, enough seats and desks in our office in the central area, But what we had were skilled people that were brought in, to articulate the solution, for the job. Hello, I'm in a public space.
You're
hello?
fine. We can still hear you. You fine. We can still hear you.
Okay. So if Quantec was saying, we don't have connection, we don't have or our connection, we don't know whether it's strong enough for us to do this job, we may not have made that Pencom contract that gave the small company more than ₦1 billion in revenues over a 6-year period. There was another contract that we also got, courtesy of the competence and understanding and utilizing your stakeholders appropriately. At that period, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, that is in charge of mortgage industry in Nigeria, equivalent of your Fannie Mae, is it Fannie Mae and Ginnie Mae? I don't know how you call it in the US. Wanted to had articulated a 3 to 5 year business plan on how to expand the mortgage industry in Nigeria, and the operations were majorly manual, with certain customer application or system that they were using, which is less than optimal in supporting the operations. So Quantec as a small company, because from time to time we engage with these clients, we do a cold call and do some research about the space that the client is operating in. Like for Federal Mortgage Bank, we had to research and find out how such an institution operates in other climes. Then right for us to have an interactive session to flesh out areas that Federal Mortgage Bank can improve on. In the process of such an arrangement or code calls, we found out that they are even considering to modernize their operations. So we utilize one or two contacts to be able to, because you have to identify whether you're working in Nigeria or you're working in any part of Africa or even abroad, there are always, you work with people, and you will have to influence certain actions to be taken, to enable you to secure your whatever business that you're pushing forward for an organization to adopt or to patronize. So that was how we got the contract to for Federal Mortgage Bank. We found out the opportunity in these our interactions that they would need to. The chief executive wanted to articulate what would they need in terms of IT to support the type of operations that they want to do in 5 years from 2005. They wanted to go into some of the stuff that you have in the US, like mortgage-backed securities, and they've articulated the process to go about that. But what technology platform do they need to support that? So we got that insight through interactions with Federal Mortgage Bank, helped them to articulate how to bring in a consultant to help them, develop an IT strategy and execute part of that strategy, building competence for internal competence for them to continue with the education after 1 or 2 years. You need to have the skills, you need to have the experience, first of all, in the sphere of service that you want to provide. You now build the other business skills and soft skills on knowing within an organization what is the power matrix, who are the people that call the shots, who are the people that are close to people that call the shots, which of these people can we have access to, what can be their interests, how do we build it in as we pursue an opportunity in our target organization. I'm giving examples of things that happened before I got into the public sector, of how we were able to get jobs. Now, I think it's even, I think the opportunities and ways to engage are even more today as compared to the years that I'm referring, that we were able to get jobs in the public sector. So if you are an individual who is a retiree, not tired, the question would be, if I want to have a business, if you want to set up a business or be part of a business that provides services within the digital space to the public sector, what are the skill sets what skill sets do I need to bring together, and what kind of services am I looking at providing? What organizations are my target, fall within my target customer space? How do I engage with this organization? The opportunities are there. What is the budget cycle in terms of preparing budget for an organization? What factors influence how items are added to budgets? How can I bring in an item to the budget of an organization that will enable that opportunity to be created for us to bid for it in the subsequent year? What are the items budgeted for this current year? That means that if you know that, it means that those areas have been identified by the organization. So if you're looking at something that is not in the budget, it means that you will be looking at building it into the budget, working with internal guys for the next year. If it is what is already in the budget and you want to bid, then you need to identify if there were companies that were involved in articulating such an input in the budget. Sometimes you may not be able to bid directly. You may have to identify people who already have influence and see what you can provide as a service as a small company to the big company or to the privileged company that already had influence in towards securing a given job. I think I will pause for now and maybe expect a few questions or input.
The last point is very instructive.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I could share an experience with that. Yeah.
Please go ahead, Mr. Ben.
So I don't know if IK were with us then, but in 2015, Nigeria was to host the All African Games. Right. And so 2015, 2005 or so, All African Games. Koja.
2003.
Is it 2003?
Yeah, 2003.
Okay.
Chogom, Commonwealth Games.
No, not Commonwealth, All African Games.
Okay, All African.
Koja.
Okay.
Yes, because Chogom came after Koja in 2005 or so. I don't remember. Anyway, so at that time, yes, we were running an IT then, and we wanted to provide the software or the IT infrastructure for Koja. All right, and we made a presentation to Amos Adamo's committee then, and so we were just a small company, and the British consultant who was in charge, Derek or so, he looked at it and like, your proposal makes a lot of sense, but you guys don't have a pedigree. There's no way you can be given this stuff to do. All right. So it turned out that they said, okay, that's Schlumberger Stema had provided the IT infrastructure for Olympics in Barcelona, and that they were going to have it, but that they were going to retain us to work with Schlumberger, as subcontractors. So that was what happened. I just thought I should share this because for sometimes you just can't get, for small organizations, you just can't, things don't work in your favor, not because you're not competent, because you don't have the pedigree.
You're right.
Okay. I guess at this point, I want to say thank you to Morah. I mean, great presentation, I must say. I've taken a lot of notes because I run a small business myself, and I know the challenge I usually encounter whenever I approach a government entity. And you've given us insights, and the kind of insights you shared today can only come from somebody who has had a feel or a taste of both divide. Because one of the biggest challenge I feel we in the small business sector have in terms of engaging public entities, public enterprises that we don't understand. In fact, we don't even understand the language to start with. And a lot of what you shared today has given me insight into the language and the dynamics around public entity and how we ourselves need to re-engineer ourselves and reposition ourselves in order to engage properly. So I want to say big thank you. I must tell you, I have taken down a whole lot. Maybe if you could see me from the camera, I was taking down notes. And I'm sure a lot of the house participants today share in what I've just said. So I want to throw the floor open from now on. I mean, throw the floor open. I'm sure there are lots of questions because you said a whole lot. I'm sure there are lots of questions, contributions from members or participants this evening. So the floor is open to anybody who is willing to ask Morah a question. And I'm sure there are other persons in the house who are also in the public sector who might also want to share a bit of insight. Maybe there's one or two things you feel Morah didn't mention that you can also mention that will be of benefit to those of us who are in the private sector.
Can I say something?
Please go ahead. The floor is open.
Okay, my name is Casey. I'm actually calling in from the US. This has been a very yeah, very insightful presentation by Mr. Morah, and even some snippets from Mr. Ben too. I think given my past experiences in Nigeria, I've not lived in Nigeria for over a decade now. I am so glad to hear some prospects, folks that still believe and leave that opportunities that exist in Nigeria. When you're outside Nigeria, it's defined as a virgin land. There are so many opportunities, there are so many sectors you can break in. And I think with this COVID-19 coming and pushing almost every part of the world towards that digital transformation, this is a critical point for not just the public sector in Nigeria, but even organizations that don't have any digital presence that do great work for the public sector. This is a good time for them to start investing in some form of digital presence. When you talk about pedigree like Ben said, the procurement of tomorrow would require some kind of testaments, some kind of testimonies. That's why you go to large IT providers, you would see them list a bunch of companies they've worked for. Some of them could just be advisory, so you have to give that testament to show what you've done in the past, even if it's pro bono. This is an opportunity for it. For Nigeria, for the public sector, and when we say public sector here, I know Mr. Morah came from the perspective of the federal government. There are so many opportunities, even for state governments and local governments and other
state governments. Yeah,
yeah, there are so many opportunities, but most times, and this is just from residual knowledge, most times the budgeting activities of these governments are not as transparent as the law requires in the federal government sector. So you wouldn't even know where the opportunities lie. Sometimes those small businesses would not even have the resources, to go seek out those opportunities. In the US here, where there's some form of transparency, at least to some level, you would have opportunities to look at organizations, look at their roadmap, see what is out there. And I know we're talking about the IT sector here, other opportunities, but you have those opportunities to look and see where you can fit in. There are so many government entities in our public sector back home in Nigeria that don't even have digital presence, or when they have, is a static page that never gets, so if the phone numbers are wrong, even the emails get bounced. I think these are things, for you guys that are in the IT sector in these organizations, these are, those base standard practices where information is readily available. I don't mean information that shouldn't be public, but information that can help, turn and move the economy. If I want to do export for cocoa, for example, I don't need to go to Cocoa House somewhere. I need to be able to pull up a website, see who the contacts are, see any case studies that's been done, see who I can reach out to. And if I want to invest in something that would require some kind of financing, I shouldn't be borrowing money from the bank just to review or understand what I want to do within that sector. I should be able to go get info, at least base level information, to be able to put my knowledge together and bid for it. And those opportunities are still very far off for most public sector engagements in Nigeria. So personal relationships are good, but given the context of our society, which is sometimes closed, depending on religion, ethnicity, even economic ranking, separates folks. Some of these small startups that could do real work and put their heart and mind into it do not have those personal relationships. And where they exist, sometimes they bring those ideas, it gets hijacked, gets sold to somebody else, and they just come to execute their ideas for peanuts. So some of that should be shaping the thoughts of tomorrow, given where we live now. I keep reading on the papers that there are no more meeting of governors now. They're using Zoom. Travel expense has been cut, so some funds has been saved, even though the economy is not truly picking up. But I am hoping that those kind of activities become the norm. You don't have to take 10 vehicles to Abuja just to meet for one Wednesday meeting that you come back the next month at great expense to the state. Such monies could be, pushed through digital. When you talk about digital transformation, if I can pull up I don't know if I can pull up any local government in Nigeria that has a web presence that is interactive, or even talking about setting up contact centers. Contact centers should be the norm. If you go to offices and you see civil servants, they all come to work, sit down and spend the day, sometimes not doing nothing. What does it take to form a contact center? These are simple software suites you can put together, deploy good network infrastructure, and people can use it to talk to the public, and educate the public. Small business councils like you have in the US here, where you can call into a government office and ask questions about what you need, and it gets provided to you. They are happy to talk to you about what you can do to succeed. That's the reverse is the case. The ordinary civil servant still feels more important than the folks that they serve. So I think I just wanted to put that in context, because that would help, shape the additional challenges that small businesses have in Nigeria. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very helpful. Thank you, Kimura, KC, right?
Yep.
Very, very helpful. Very, very. So, any other person that has a comment, a question?
Sorry, can I say something?
Please go ahead. Go ahead. Who do we have there?
Okay. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Introduce yourself and let's have your question.
Okay, my name is Osita. Mine is more of a comment to the small entrepreneurs. Thank you, Mora. Thank you, everybody, for the presentation. I don't know if you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Very well.
Okay. Mine is more of comments. Having been on both sides, I'm now in private sector. One thing I have to say to the small businesses that want to break into public sector and the rest is one, selling to public sector, it has a long sales cycle. We have what you call in technology sales cycle. In other words, if you go in, if you start by January 2020, don't expect that you sell immediately before the close of the year. So selling to public sector has a long sales cycle. And so it needs some patience on the side of the entrepreneur. I will give you an example, and somebody pointed it here also. The issue of system spec, for instance, you won't take away the place of pro bono, you place proof of concept, proof of value as one of the ways to get into public sector. A company like a system spec, the remitter that we did actually done as POC, and it came to government free. In fact, when the project was signed, the agreement was that, oh, government, this should come to you free, and then whenever you start using it, my professional fee will be 5% of whatever amount that is remitted using this application. For the first 3-4 years of the development of remitter, nothing was made, no gains. In fact, government didn't even adopt it. And finally, when it got adopted, with the first 1 month of single treasury account, over 20 billion was remitted using a remitter. And 5% of 20 billion, you know. At that point, National Assembly started fighting back that the money is too much for one vendor. You understand? So what saved system spec? Because agreement has already been reached 4-5 years ago. So what am I trying to say? Patience, patience, patience. Go in with pro, go. Expect to get nothing in the immediate. Expect that this is a long sales cycle. Another thing I want to say to the small entrepreneurs is that learn also to collaborate. In place where I work, you will never take away the issue of pedigree. You will never take away the brands. There are vendors that we are looking out for, because we know that whenever we give them contracts, we know that such contracts will not fail. We also have some vendors that are so rich that if you don't have the money budgeted in this year's budget cycle, they could offer free service to you and tell you to put it in next year budget. So those big names, is always difficult to beat them. However, we have cases where those big names don't have the right skill sets. So I'm now talking to the smaller connection. But if the organization insists that they will give it to the big name, learn to collaborate with the big name. Be part of the big name. Get the small thing you can get from the deal, and from that time you have a reference point. Like somebody mentioned here, a lot of these vendors that go about saying, I've worked for CBN, I've done it for FIRC, I've done it for this. It might just be an advisory service. It might just be like a POC. It might just be like they collaborated with others to deliver. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Sita. That was a great one. Okay. Any other person willing to say something, comment, question for Mr. Morah?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mr. Ubong, I think. Am I correct?
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, good evening, Ubong. Welcome.
All right. I'm sorry I joined the meeting late. I wasn't well informed. But then I please want Casey to explain something. He said something about network and some websites used backing it up with contact. So I please want him to give me an overview. I didn't really get those points. So Casey, could you please say something about that? Explain more. I want to get more information. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Casey, I hope you got his question. He wants
Oh
you
yeah,
to
yeah.
rephrase
I had I had a bunk. So what I made reference to is there are 774 local government areas in Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Leave the main cosmopolitans. Pick any local government, say in any region of the country, and try looking it up online. Sometimes you find out that we don't, the sites could be built, but they are not interactive. When I mean interactive, there is no source of information that would help a local entrepreneur, gain access into what is actually going on in the government. You see small contracts being executed. You don't know how it is, being how the procurement process went about. So there are so many ways that a small IT firm can launch themselves into, and I'm using these local governments because I don't want to go federal, but there are so many ways small firms can come in and say, you know what, I'm going to build this platform for you. There are some, like Ude is in therapy business, right? There are local governments that still have challenges around managing the activities and other procurement processes that they do. There are small softwares that could be deployed via the website that can help these local governments showcase what they do. So if you are manufacturing, say, if you're a local government that is rich with sorghum, for example, how can I, living in another part of Nigeria that knows the value of sorghum and I want to invest in it, how can you be a resource to me when there's no visibility without me going to a market, a local market, to go find out the cost and all that, or who or how to even process it? So when I say opportunities are bound, and we are with the COVID-19 pushing Nigeria, flipping Nigeria into the digital space. And when I say digital space, now things have changed. It cannot be readily visible now, but it's going to happen. We have to have updated phone numbers. We have to have updated contacts. Think about when we launched the COVID-19 site, for example. The first number that was put there was wrong. I even read in one of the very popular newspapers that somebody called a number and that person said, "Hey, I'm not on duty today. This is my phone number." So things like that, contact centers could be managed very well. And when I say very well, I mean in terms of those executives that need those advice. As a small business, you can approach them and say, "This is something I found. I can do this for you. I can do it at no cost. Hopefully, if it works well, just like other examples are, then you have a reference. When you do it for one local government, you will do it for others." I don't want to give a personal experience I had because it's so many years ago, and Udegbunam MORAH and a few others know this story. At National Assembly in 98, 99, when those members came for the first time, and some of them came on motorbikes. Some were just traders that were elected to the office. At the advent of democracy in Nigeria, so they needed to go back at the end of the year to show their people what they've done. While we were as coppers in National Assembly, then I had a few friends of mine, and I want to share this personal experience. We came together and said, you know what? How can we help these guys? Some of them are going back to very interior areas of Nigeria. We have pictures that have been taken by some press staff of National Assembly. We started picking those pictures. We put a Rolodex of album for them. We go to Gariki Area 10 there and we print a sample on a glossy print. I said, imagine this hanging in every of your constituents' office. Some of them just laughed and scoffed at it. So we did samples and we gave them. And those samples couldn't last a day by the time they got home. By the time they came back, especially the ones from some part of Nigeria where we had personal relationships, they said, you know what, why don't you do 100,000 pieces of this for me? How much would it cost? Now, remember, we've already done our sampling. All we needed to do is mass produce. We went down to Worcester Market, found printers that could do this, put together, and made lots of money from it before it started giving it to their constituents. And that's how we broke into that market, to that printing market. So there are so many ways small businesses can launch, but it has to take extra additional initiative, going out to find those resources. And when I mean digital resources from the public sector, here in the US, the government helps those small businesses to thrive. They provide that information free of service. If you want to go invest in a foreign country, you just need to call the office that has the experience having worked in that foreign company, and they'll give you all the resources you need. I don't know of how many Nigerian businesses that would want to launch, say, in an East African country that can get all the information they need about that East African country from a single source of contact, right? So there are opportunities that abound. You have to be curious. One, as a small business, you have to be ready to solve a problem where it exists. If it means you getting a launch pad into that sector. So there are so many ways to do it, but these are, it's a combination of the business mindset and at the same time your personal relationship with people. So does that help?
Awesome.
All right, Casey, thanks very much for your idea. I really appreciate.
Yep.
I want to add a little about the local governments, especially for, there are some jobs that are also low-hanging fruits for companies, small businesses that have the competence. At the federal level, World Bank funded what you call GIFMIS, Government Integrated Financial Management Information System. It's also part of the backbone that Remita relies on, for all government transactions. The same World Bank is funding equivalent of that at the state level called SIFMIS, State Integrated Financial Management Information System. That is how Delta State enterprise resource planning system is being built. That's how Rivers is being built. That's how Kaduna state is doing theirs, and this will cut across all the states. World Bank also has an initiative for a similar stuff at the local government level. The funding is there, but how do you position to get such a contract? You need to have the requisite team, even if it's a new company, but you need to have the team that have the requisite experience, that can get this job. They're looking for people who would implement that, not with the type of technology that was used at the federal and the state level. The federal level was done with Oracle technology. The state level is being done with SAP. For the local government level, to build an ERP that will even consolidate this information that we're talking about, which can now be provisioned as part of what you can see on their websites, and maybe interactive applications that will help you to get access to the information and business opportunities within a given local government. The World Bank is considering what is called, this is a vital information, what is called Open ERP. Open ERP is an open source form of what you have as SAP ERP or Oracle ERP. As we speak, I don't know of any business in Nigeria that is within the IT space that has competency in open ERP. So when the contracts come, you will still see foreign companies that will just do the needful and set up a local presence that will get these jobs to implement in our environment. So when I say you need to then there are initiatives. You need to, your ears should be on the ground. There is a lot happening. Budget. Do you know budget? How many of us know budget? BUDGIT.
Yeah.
Okay. Budget, you can see the funding that comes for budget. Good initiative on how to, on bringing out to the public how the budget is spent, both at the federal and at the state level. Put together as a social initiative, non-governmental initiative, but has attracted a lot of funding from the likes of World Bank and other sister agencies. So there are also initiatives that small businesses can look at, especially if you look at the interest areas of international organizations that fund activities within Nigeria and within Africa. You can look at that and see, okay, there are fundings for so and so. How do we build or set up a team, with the requisite experience? You might not have all the experience, but when you have the information and you know who to partner with to build a team that can help your small business to secure certain grants, to execute some stuff, that will also help. So at the local government level, that is an opportunity that is currently available now. As we leave this space, for those of us who might be interested, check out with World Bank. First of all, look for SIFMIS, then check out with World Bank. You'll find out that they have a program for local government. The country is interested in enabling the local government system to function. I think there was a law that was passed in National Assembly that should enable local governments to get their funds directly from first line charge. I don't know if I read about something like that in the past. So
financial autonomy for local governments. That's
yes. So these are the enabling policies that would open up a lot of opportunities at local government. For a small business now that has this type of information, if you research, you can and know the space where there is a lot of opportunity, but know where these opportunities rely. Given this information that we provided now, you can what do you call it? Be a forerunner in that space. By the time you do for 1 or 2 local governments, you can even go ahead to implement for local government free of charge, and that will help you to have the requisite profile to attract the funding to do for other local governments. I just wanted to add that. Hello.
Something real quick. So if I were advising a young person now about working for government, I would not encourage the person to go get a direct job with government, right? For 2 reasons. For the environment that we are getting into, there's more job satisfaction if you work well in the IT space, but not just IT, a whole lot of other things. IT will be transforming government across board, but we're going to see a lot of government jobs being provided by third-party organizations. Right. In my office, particularly, we are promoting onshore outsourcing, and most of the jobs or the initiatives that has been referred to here are not the type that will be provided by mainstream public servants, but small organizations, whether it's 2-man or 5-man or 10-man organization, and so on. The project I'm working on right now, we later have to stay up all night working. I have to submit by Monday. Is to come up with frameworks for which third-party organizations or business process outsourcing organizations can be recognized and anchor businesses for digital services rather for government. So the opportunities are there. I just thought this is just in line with what IK is saying. For young people or small business owners, you want to look at you also have to understand the niche market that is evolving in Nigeria. For other organizations that are looking to support small businesses, you too have to understand the direction of government now. And most of these opportunities are facilitated by the current pandemic. It has become even more obvious that we have to go digital. One, two, that government structure as it is, the environment, the system, the culture, is not the type that would support innovative or the provision of innovative services. You want to look at a situation where a government organization closes at 4 o'clock. Is that where you're going to put take the federal secretariat? Is that where you're going to put servers and all this stuff to provide 24/7 services? No. For the most part, you can have a small organization that can anchor services for several MDAs. At the end of the day, it will be cheaper because the more clients they have, the lower the unit cost, per client, and that's where we're really going to see, more affordable, efficient services. So that's the way to go, and we should look at taking advantage of this growing opportunities. Thank you.
Any more ideas, contributions, questions, need for clarification? Have we done justice to this topic?
I think you did a great job in the scenarios and case studies that you cited. It's quite insightful, like I said before. And I would hope, I don't know, what is this, a webinar series? Is this is it a continuing series, or is this something that how was this prompted, so we know if we can continue joining it? It's quite educating.
Yeah, it's a webinar. It's every week, every Saturday.
Awesome.
Sorry, I have a question for Mr. Moore and Ben and a number of all you public sector guru here. Mr. Ben, sorry, Udegbunam, I would direct this at you, essentially because of your presentation. And that question is, in our current procurement process, the way it's largely structured, and I must commend you, what you said makes a lot of sense about personal relationships, doing pro bono work and everything. But one question I want to ask is, this quasi-informal procurement process, I hope you understand what I mean by that. How is it affecting our ability to select the best provider of any service, if in any sector we're looking at? I don't know if my question is clear or makes sense.
The reality is that every business environment or space, like the Nigerian space, for example, has its unique features that you have to adapt to if you have to be in business. So while on paper we have an excellent procurement process and it's continually being improved courtesy of the new the agency Bureau of Public Procurement that is in place. And just like Mr. Ben mentioned, there's an initiative to centralize and improve the sourcing of services by the BPP, the Bureau of Public Procurement. You still have to for our environment, build relationships that will help you to draw insights of how you can effectively engage and secure contracts. We can't remove that fact completely. Some organizations have been led by excellent administrators that gave the opportunity for people to bid and the best person selected. For instance, where I work, at some point between 2010 and 2012, a lot of procurements were can be characterized to fall in within that group where you don't need to know anyone to get the job. But you can't remove the what you call the relationship component completely today. But knowing that, what actions you take to navigate through successfully will determine how successful you are with your seeking and securing opportunities within the public sector space. So we can't completely remove the need for relationships.
Let me also say something.
Yeah.
Everywhere in the world, relationships matter. All right. Even in the US, we still have that, especially when it comes to highly sensitive government contracts and so on. All right. There will be some differences though. While relationships are used maybe to ensure that the best gets it, maybe it's not necessarily the case. That may be some other underlying priorities, right? But relationships still matters anyhow. Now, there's also an upswing when it comes to quality of the process. So yesterday I was in the project my committee cleared for a major ministry, where the guy used to be chief executive of Lagos. Okay, and that's as much I'll say. So because in my office we clear all IT projects for in the federal government, right? So for any IT project to go through, whether even PPP, PP must make sure that you've got need that clearance before it goes through and so on. So this project came. It was clear to me from the onset that the guys in the ministry didn't have much technical depth on the project. And I asked the guys who were saying, "So who are you?" They say, "You're a consultant. Have you been procured?" They say, "Oh, they're the ones who introduced the idea to the minister, and the minister like blah blah blah, and so on." So that's just to show you that even when contacts are used, you still have to go through the process. And if that project is not likely to pass based on what we heard yesterday, but I mean, irrespective of the fact that they came from the minister and so on. So these are some of the checks that are in place that we are using to ensure that at the end, qualified organizations get the contract, even if the from the president. Yep.
Sorry, Ben. I get that. The point I'm making is how much are we losing as a nation Obviously, whatever you do, even in the private sector, relationships and networking is fantastic. But again, as an outsider, and I think Mr. Mora mentioned quite a number of cases. Like two of you said, it's probably getting a lot better, but we still have a long way to go. In choosing who should get a job, the what we get here is that ordinarily it should be technical competence and then relationship, but it tend to be the other way around in a number of public sector projects, and which is why a company that does not know anything about pre-shipment inspection was pre-selected when there are a number of other organizations in and obviously for quite a number of them, they will get that job. When it's time to implement, they will start struggling. So in doing that, the cost we tend to get is either poor implementation or because that job was gotten based on relationship. The cost of implementing will now be way higher, because what they will do is to get that job and then go look for that technically competent person to help deliver. Well, my question is, what is the experience like today in that? Then I have a second one, and then I will leave others to talk. How do especially indigenous companies protect themselves and ensure that the sanctity of their contract with government? I'm bringing this because Remita has featured a lot in our discussions today.
Yes.
At some point, Remita had System Specs had a valid contract with the government and everything. Suddenly, everywhere, because of the amount of money flowing through Remita, it became a big problem. They eventually managed to save the contract, but the fees that were agreed for TSA, for System Specs, and their other partners that were working in that project was practically the government just woke up and decided what they want to pay them. The feeling out there is that you could probably do that if it was say a SAP or an Oracle that signed that contract with government of Nigeria. Would that same thing happen to them? So how do, and again, System Specs is even a big company, how do smaller organizations that will probably get involved in something that nobody knows and that suddenly becomes big protect the sanctity of their contract? Thank you.
Is that for me or for Ike?
Both of you, whoever.
Ben, you can weigh in first, please.
Let me Ben, I know you guys in the public sector, there are opinions that you cannot truly shape. But to the last speaker, I think I think this is more like a macro level issue. It's a governance issue, right? So as a nation, we've made mistakes. These case studies that we're even having these discussions today is a testament to where things are going in the right trajectory. If Remita didn't have a foolproof agreement, there wouldn't even be discussions about continuing that project, right, with them. The government could still keep the project, keep the platform, and implement it somehow without Remita doing nothing. So that's where it comes to for small businesses. You don't go all out alone. I think these guys have talked about putting together a team, and that team also requires somebody with government contracting experience, even as a resource, combing through what you are presenting. There's been so many cases or so many stories about folks bringing very sound, valid ideas, putting it in the hands of executives that need these ideas to be implemented for them, and it ends up being given to somebody else, right? So the presenter here
Okay,
also
I'm
gave
having
us.
issues with audio. I'm hearing what's
Sorry,
going on,
somebody
but
needs to
the light
mute
is
their
not
phone.
working. I've tried and I can't get.
Please, can you mute your phone, please? So the presenter also made a case about a case where somebody approached an executive governor and said, "Look, I can do these things for you at no cost, but you have to sign that you would do this." You know, that's not the actual language that was used, but it kind of speaks to the fact that some due diligence, knowing the environment they operate in. You know, so for a small business, for business and all, before you get into any form of government contracting, you should know your environment. You should know the stakeholders. I think the presenter talked about stakeholder analysis. You know, who are the people with vested interests? You know, what is the opportunity cost here? You know, do you have anything to fall back on if this falls through and your intellectual property is already in the hands of these guys who would go ahead and do it, right? So in Remita's case, they came in pro bono, started doing this, and we are successful because they have built that pedigree. They've shown they could do this. I think I heard that they did it for 3 years for free before the money started coming in the first month, and then the guys at National Assembly screamed, right? So it all ties into don't jump into that business fray without doing due diligence. Know your stakeholders, prepare a foolproof argument, sometimes present a one page that shows what you intend to do until you get the ears of the stakeholders before you go into the details and into your work breakdown and all that. So that's where I would chip in. But I know these guys that work for the public sector wouldn't see that view. They want you to come prepared, but they won't tell you what to be ready for because there's still an engagement, right? They're trying to sign you up to do something for them, so they should be able to have that leverage to win, right? So that's the way I would look at it.
Awesome. You captured it well. The need for someone that is experienced in government contracting, the need for even a lawyer to also it can be a lawyer too, to also that has that to work out a means to protect what you're presenting is very
An
important.
experienced lawyer for that matter.
An experienced lawyer.
There are too many journalists in Nigeria. With a problem, for real.
Yeah.
Even in the IT space, if someone says I'm a consultant, and so on. All right. So most of the when it comes to technology business, you need specialties, or rather specialists, lawyers. You need to have. Unfortunately, we don't have much of that. People who know how to do, lawyers who know how to deal with software projects. Software projects are the most complex projects to deal with. And I see that on a daily basis because even when for MDAs that are procuring software-related projects, they don't know the intricacies that are involved in it. And that's why something comes up. 2 years ago, we approved a project for national health insurance. It was an Oracle project. After commissioning the project and so on, I think the vendors just packed their bags and left, right? And the MDA is stuck, so they can't move forward, all right? So, and it all has to do with some of the hidden like I say, the fine lines that exist when it comes to software projects. Right. So we need to both the small business and the government, that's the user of the service, the procuring agency needs to be better grounded in procurement laws, especially those related to software. And then for Kingsley's other question, yes, there's a direct cost to government when it, as a result of maybe over reliance on on connections. Connections do have a cost. Sometimes they could work for you, sometimes they do not. Right. So, I mean, and that is not even the only challenge we have. But what you were very right when you talked about the fact that quality gets compromised along several layers of the business as a result of maybe too much reliance on connections. But the point I made earlier on is that despite the presence of such practices, you know, the negative impact is being curtailed by other measures that have been put in place, from centralization of procurement practice to PP. So, for instance, in the case of IT projects, you know, the government's insistence on a central clearinghouse at NIDA, right? So we still see that to share a personal experience. One of the challenges I have observed when it comes to IT projects, it's in the conception stage, right? So you see all sort of projects, and some of them, when you look at them, you just shake your head. Look, this is not going to, it's not going to add value to the organization, all right? So again, this is something too that is very common. So somebody, because you know that an MD exists somewhere, or you know the chief executive, so you sell an idea to them. That the idea may not necessarily be relevant to the government, but it is budgeted for, and then the procurement begins. So for the most part, we look at when we see that a project that has already been budgeted for, but lacks merit, you step it down, and that happens a lot.
Yeah, it does happen. Yeah. Okay. Uko, George, how do we? I think we've got. Yeah. Now.
Yeah, I'm here. Uko had to drop because he was having some network issues.
Okay.
We do want to say thank you so much, Mr. Mora, for sharing your thoughts with us today. It has been insightful. It's been engaging. It's been thoroughly engaging. It's really, really, for myself, sometimes it's really hard to carry on a conversation online, but you've done incredible. And so I am really, really grateful for that. So thank you for being free and sharing this knowledge with us. And I can say I'm speaking on behalf of everyone who joined the meeting. It has been very helpful. And so we'll go ahead and wrap up. If there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and say thanks everyone for joining the webinar. We'll see you next Saturday at the same time.
Thank you, Nels.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Right.
Thank you very much. It's been an awesome moment. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Kingsley. Thank you, Long.
Thank you too. Good night.
All right.